It's time for a Shway Media podcast.
Disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed in the show do not necessarily reflect those of Shway Media or any subsidiaries. The program may contain strong language not suitable for young audiences. Series discussions will contain spoilers. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy the show! Welcome.
How is everybody doing? How is everybody doing today?
Welcome to the first episode ever of Dubterfuge. My name is Stella Luna, and with me is Matt.
Hello. What are we talking about today?
Oh man, what aren't we talking about today? No, I'm just kidding. We decided to kick this off with some magic. Magic. Today, I think we're going to talk about Izetta the Last Witch.
That's what the notes say.
A 12-episode fantasy adventure anime from Izetta Animation Works. Aired in the fall of 2016. Crunchyroll and Funimation streamed them both as they aired in sub and dub, respectively. I may or may not have just read that off of Wikipedia.
You probably did.
Shh. No, I didn't. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, I'm pretty excited to talk about this.
It is a fun show. One of my favorites in the genre, definitely, and really just all around, definitely top 20-ish.
I wonder how prevalent. Or not prevalent, but I wonder, how much witches are prevalent in Japanese, culture, or if they're just sort of borrowing from Western culture.
Well, with a lot of the witch shows, it's borrowed from Western culture. I haven't really heard about any kind of, witches in the way we know in Japanese lore. I've heard of female spirits and demons and stuff, but never an actual hex casting magic using witch.
Yeah, because I know clearly witches. I mean are. Clearly, magic exists in their culture, obviously.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just something I've just been curious about, because it does show up quite a bit.
I like anime that has a heavy Western influence. It's more relatable and more relatable more than anything. It's fun, and you're like, oh, they based it on that thing. I remember that from school. This makes more sense now.
Yeah, of course.
So what's the show about?
Okay, so this is an interesting one. It's set basically in an alternative. It's like an alternate retelling of the Second World War, and it follows. And so Izetta is she's like the last surviving member of a clan of witches, and they have this ability to kind of it's gravity manipulation, and they can manipulate objects that they touch.
Levitation.
Yeah, it's I don't want to say it's psychokinetic, because obviously she's using the power of this magic stone. But essentially, she has the power to kind of manipulate and control objects by touching them. And then they kind of become influenced by her magic. And she can kind of do what she, make them do whatever she wants them to do, basically.
Yes. and she wants to help defeat the Germanians in the war, and so she makes the objects help do that, from turning tanks upside down to almost wrecking an aircraft carrier to plan, but not really.
Yeah, so for the most part, I think in terms of historical accuracy, like, most of what's happening is fairly accurate. They've kind of changed up the names, obviously. So where this is mainly taking place is in this country of Aelstadt, which to me seems like it's kind of representing like Austria-Hungary. But like, imagine if like Austria-Hungary actually fought back against the Nazis.
Yes. Aelstadt is not afraid to fight back, and that is one of the more empowering things I like about this show, because the princess Fine is not afraid of getting her hands dirty, and is just getting up in everyone's business about fighting back.
Yeah, and then you have obviously like Britannia is still Britannia, and then the U.S., or probably like my favorite interpretation of the U.S., which is now the United States of Atlanta.
Well, it does have the busiest airport in the country, which might actually be the joke since there's so much flying.
Yeah, pretty much. I think, although the role that the U.S. of Atlanta takes within the show is actually kind of pretty accurate to how it happened in real life. Like, kind of sit it out until the very end.
Yeah, though they were just sort of spurred by Fine and Izetta's effort and didn't get bombed. That we know of.
Yeah, that we know of. So I would say, like, some strengths of the show, in my opinion, are a very compelling narrative. I really like the aesthetics. I like the character designs a lot. I think the main characters are also really likable. And I think overall this very much appeals to, like, military otaku. So, like, fans of, like, historical fiction, or just like fantasy and adventure. But I think this is like a kind of a specific type of historical fiction. It's like historical war fiction, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. The character designs, like you said, I like how it sort of balances like some of the Yuri aspects with actuality. Like, it's not, thank God it's not ecchi, and then but it's like you can tell they care for each other, but at the same time they're here to do a job, and they are going to do that job, and just have they both have an objective, and they want to help the other person, and it's not just I love you, I love you, I love you. It's I care about you, let me help you beat these guys.
Yeah. And so I think I wrote this down in my notes. I really liked so at the beginning of certain episodes, they kind of mimic these like war propaganda reels, like these like news reels that were really prevalent during World War II. Like, you'll see, just like these like clips that they used to show on television, to kind of give everybody like an update of what was happening, but to also get people, involved to like support their troops and everything. And so I liked that they did that in the beginning of certain episodes. I thought that was actually really cool. It was a really interesting take. And if you look really closely, they actually took the time to proofread all of the English that was printed on those reels.
I noticed that it was greatly appreciated, and not something you see every day in anime, because a lot of the times in the background papers that you see, it is barely comprehensible as a sentence, but this is like a little choppy, but could fly as an actual descriptive sentence.
Yeah, and I like where they kind of took the narration too. I mean, they really did kind of go all out. Like they had, like they made it kind of look like an old-fashioned slide reel, with like, film scratches and everything, kind of a muted sepia tone, kind of like an old-timey like radio narrator guy.
Another thing I liked is that they actually made in the show, they actively did a propaganda campaign. Like they hired media person Elvira, I forget what her exact title was before she defected, but they actually turned her into an actual symbol. Like I know they mimicked a couple of Army Air Corps posters from the war, and maybe a couple of the pro women ones like that. I know they did the "We Can Do It" poster with Izetta.
Yeah, they did.
And then a couple other working class women posters that I honestly thought were done really well. Like, you could tell what they were trying to do, but at the same time it felt original.
I'm just quickly looking up some of those posters.
While you're doing that, I will say that more about the posters. I also liked how they had photographers flying with Izetta, like flying in a plane like with Izetta to get the pictures, because that is, I'm pretty sure they actually did that during the war. But they only came out later, I think. I'm probably wrong. But I liked how they sort of stayed true to character on some of the, for lack of a better term, war culture or war propaganda culture that they went with, that the U.S. went with. Even though it's supposed to be Europe, it seems like seems like Japan's really considering their foreign audience in this one in terms of relatability.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm sorry?
No, I was just gonna move on saying that Izetta, instead of a plane, uses a customized anti-tank rifle, which is probably the coolest weapon ever.
No, since... like I thought that was awesome. Like she basically uses it as one of those speeder bikes from Star Wars.
Yeah.
Imagine which is fucking awesome.
Imagine a broom that can also shoot things like a
like
firebolt with a cannon.
Well, first of all, this is so much more practical, given the situation they're in. I mean, a broom's gonna be fucking useless. I mean,
what are you gonna do? Sweep the plane to death?
Sorry, this needs a bit of dusting.
Yeah. Oh my God, your wings are filthy. When did you last clean these? Ugh. What if this got into your engine?
What else? Oh, the soundtrack. I'm completely obsessed with the soundtrack. Unfortunately, I cannot find any information on the insert songs, which is really frustrating. So I'm probably just gonna have to physically buy the soundtrack.
You mean the choral ones?
Yeah, there's a piece that I can't really find any other information on. Like, I don't know who composed it or anything. I can only find information on the opening and ending songs, but there's a piece that plays whenever Izetta is kind of like powers up, so to speak. It's a
Espenaria. Like that's the one you're thinking of?
That, but basically, like sung better. I'm just
kidding.
Thank you. Just kidding. But yeah,
I am not a singer and never claimed to be.
But yeah, it's that exact piece, and it sounds so cool. Yeah, just like the way that they layered the choral tracks over it is it's really cool, and it sounds awesome, and definitely had that song stuck in my head for a while.
Yes. And in addition to an awesome music, the action scenes in this are some of the best you'll ever see. Like, they studied actual dogfights in
Oh yeah, definitely.
from both World Wars to get this. Like, Izetta is basically like an ace, like Aelstat's ace pilot at this point. She does these dive moves that are insane, and then can like somehow gets behind them. It's like Top Gun, but with a 16-year-old girl on steroids.
Yeah, what I liked is that anytime like the planes move, like Izetta's rifle kind of mimics those movements.
Yeah, the way they turn or dive, that was a nice touch. And some of the other action scenes are in the end when she is fighting Sophie. I just loved how creative the writers got with that, like giant tendrils made of like train cars.
Yeah,
are getting whipped around in the air, just like ping pong balls in a bingo machine. And it is just a treat to watch because the movements are so fluid yet and so much fun.
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay, so on to. Oh, actually no, we're gonna keep talking about positive stuff. I really liked the dub cast. I thought the performances were really, really, really well done.
Yeah, the dub on it was spectacular. For the dub we had Mallory Rodak playing Princess Fine and Skylar McIntosh playing Izetta, and those two had some awesome chemistry together. And then everyone else really was just fit their roles to a T, and you could tell that they were really into the performances.
Oh, for sure.
One thing that I am so glad happened on the home video release with this was that the ADR director Kyle Phillips was able to keep the late great Cole Brown's lines in the show instead of having David Wald go back and re-record them. I thought that was so grateful. I was so grateful for that. It's like a really sort of nice little tribute to him. For those of you who don't know, Cole Brown sadly passed away mid-production of the show, and there was a whole scramble to replace him.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice touch that they were able to can't talk anymore. They were able to keep some of his lines, and I think like the transition ended up being really smooth. Like, it's not particularly jarring in any way.
You could tell it's someone else, but at the same time, it didn't feel completely out of character for what had already been established for Lord Redford.
Also, I think because those episodes are not so spaced out, but I think they're spaced out enough. At least from what I can remember, like they're spaced out enough to where
you don't hear him consistently and realize immediately, that doesn't sound like him at all. It's a smoother transition due to his few appearances.
Yeah, like it's not, like one episode he sounds like this, like literally next episode he sounds completely different, or like God forbid in the same scene. So luckily they didn't run into any of those problems.
That would be some Pop Team Epic BS right there.
Oh man, that show is wacky. We will definitely talk about that show in an upcoming episode, I promise.
That is another show for another episode. Where were we?
So some things I didn't quite like about the show. I kind of feel like some of the character writing was a little shallow, and I really feel like the main relationship didn't progress to a point that I would have liked. I don't think it really, progresses any much further than what we see.
What point would you have wanted it to progress to? Just wondering.
Well, for one thing, a lot of Izetta or the majority of Izetta and Fine's relationship to one another is very much implicit. There's never like any sort of outright declaration of how they feel. And I kind of would have preferred at least some sort of, dialogue about that. Even if it were just, like you're my best friend or something. I don't know. I just felt like there should have just been something.
I feel like Fine might not really care too much about romantic relationships because she cares about Izetta, but at the same time, in the first episode, she was saying, I'm willing to marry this dude if it means bringing peace. So she's definitely putting her people before her own romantic interests, if she has any.
That is true, but mainly at that time in particular, I feel like marriage, especially at that level of society, for people who are at that, status level, you know what I mean? Who are in kind of like the upper level of society like that, I feel like it was mainly just for like political and monetary convenience.
They know they're not going to get married for love. It's going to be
very much like an arrangement.
It's going to be because it's going to help the greater good.
Yeah. Or at least help, keep that family's like status the way it is.
Yep.
What else? Okay, so we talked a little bit about the good guys, now onto the bad guys. Man, Emperor Otto, he felt very cartoonish to me.
He also didn't really do much. He only appeared like after the show was more than halfway done. We're like, oh, so that's the dude that everyone on the side we're cheering for is hating on. Like he sort of came a little out of nowhere, but at the same time he didn't. But at the same time, it was like, okay, yeah, we understand why you're introducing him, but like, what's the point at this point?
Yeah, and I believe he's trying to. Is it Wilhelm? Hang on, I'm gonna see. Like, he's supposed to be loosely based off of. I want to say like one of the last emperors.
That was Kaiser Wilhelm. If you're
yes,
design wise, they screamed Kaiser Wilhelm. Then, the dude did not really have much in the way of military interest, since he only really wanted to. The only thing he seemed interested in getting was the magic power of the witch, and just like betting the whole farm on that one power, which if you've played any kind of strategy video game, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
And then what I thought was really interesting was that since it's supposed to be World War II, they replaced radioactive material with magic. Like they had the giant magic bomb that could wipe out Aelstad, and that was basically the same thing as the atomic bomb in the real world. So I sort of thought that was interesting, but then I realized that like the ley lines would have to be radiation and all of Europe would be dead.
Yes, there's the rub. That would be a pretty significant caveat.
Yeah, the metaphor, or the simile only goes so far until you realize, oh, I'm killing everyone.
Which, I mean, given how, intelligent Otto is, he'd probably do something that stupid.
Yeah, Otto I can understand why they took so long to introduce Otto, because he has little to nothing to do.
Pretty much his entire character, like, his entire purpose, other than being constantly manipulated by Berkman, is just to, like, harness the Magic Stone's energy to take over the world, because mwahaha.
It's like Otto and the brain.
Yeah, pretty much.
What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do tonight, brain? Harness the energy to take over the world.
Yeah, it's like, what shall we do tonight, Berkman? Try and take over the world, Otto.
With magical energy.
Okay.
Speaking of magical energy, another thing I thought that was a good idea was the use of the ley lines to limit her power so that she wouldn't be just completely OP.
Yeah.
I thought I'd like it when superhuman things like that have limiting aspects. It sort of makes it a little more, brings the character more down to earth, makes him a little more understandable, relatable, instead of just I can do everything.
Yeah, plus, yeah, like, I think giving her a handicap like that was a good choice. Because then otherwise she could just wipe the enemy out in like 2 seconds and then, show's over.
You mentioned him a second ago. Let's talk about Berkman, aka like the soldier of fortune of the show.
Shiesty McShysterson.
Yes.
Oh god, this guy annoyed the crap out of me.
He was a little too good at his job when he was on the enemy side, and then when he switched sides, we were glad that he was good at his job.
I swear, like, I could just see him writing in his little notebooks, smirking to himself, like, all according to Keikaku.
Yeah, he definitely was just in it for himself. He wanted to make sure that he would make it to his next meal, pretty much.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I still think it was, like, not gonna lie, I laughed a little bit when he switches sides and, like, Otto's just kind of left there crying like a little bitch.
Yeah.
That was pretty amusing.
Yeah, I thought, like, the way he handled it was just, like, the smoothest thing you will ever see. Like, there was no panic, no, like, begging or anything. It's like, seems like we should have a discussion. What say I help you and you help me help you.
Yeah,
that way we can all get what we want.
And then he just goes and sells all his secrets to the U.S.
Yeah, assumes a new identity, runs off somewhere. I will say, though, that the dude was a tactical genius. Like, the espionage he had organized was really good. The whole plan to sneak into the old castle, get the pictures of the of the ley lines, and then have a backup spy for that. I thought that was really clever. That is some like high level espionage stuff.
Who was that kid?
The one with the glasses?
Yeah, Rip Jonas.
Yeah. But turns out Izetta's not the last witch, and we have another witch coming in at a couple random times named Sophie. And
Wicked Witch of the Nazis.
Yes, if she is the OP character here because she has a magic stone that lets her use magic anywhere. And boy, does she have a grudge, don't you think?
Well, technically, she's just the reincarnation of the Vice Hex.
Yes, but she inherited
the White Witch.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was born out of a... Whoa, my computer just started... Okay, there we go. Yeah, she's basically just this reincarnation. But she has, like, I felt like her motivations were just kind of like this really basic revenge plot that doesn't really have any sort of, I don't know.
I thought her involvement in the first bit of it was a little bit sort of forced, because the first time we hear about her, she's at the masquerade ball and then just suddenly starts making out with Izetta. Well, not making out, but like bites her lip to get her blood, pretty much, to go into beast mode. And then we don't see her, and then it's just like, hi, I'm mad at you, remember me?
Yeah, and everybody's just kind of like,
oh, okay.
Who are you?
Yeah, and
then she's like, I am blah, 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 blah. And then they're like, okay, yeah, but who?
Yeah. Yeah, then they had to go through the whole diatribe again of, I came back as I'm like the original White Witch, but not quite, and now I'm back and I'm angry. And speaking of how she got her Izetta's blood, our next bullet point is pointless fan service moments.
Yeah, pretty much.
That being one of them, and probably the most Yuri scene in the entire show.
Although I feel like that also kind of served a purpose, because she did have to obtain her blood.
Yeah, that was...
However, there is
They get points for creativity.
Yeah. I mean, and if you thought, pretty much in anime, in the anime fan... Well, especially if you're a Fujoshi, the words corset scene usually refers to a very famous instance in Black Butler.
Yes.
So now that the Fujoshi have their little corset scene, now the otaku can have theirs too.
Though I will say that corset scene had one of the greatest visual puns to ever be written into anime. I was dying rolling on the floor when...
I definitely give props to the dub cast for making the most out of that.
Yes.
And kind of turning something really tasteless and stupid into something like actually pretty amusing.
That wins the award for probably the best boob joke in anime.
Well, no, I'm just kidding.
I mean, it had the visuals to go with it too, and then I never had this problem with the princess. And then Fina goes, could my small alpine nation really stand up to such a vast empire?
Butt it up.
I had to stop watching that episode to just laugh, because I was laughing too hard and couldn't watch what was happening next. That was probably the most brilliant line in the show, if I had to go so far as to say that. I was dying. So while somewhat unnecessary, the fan service moments were hilarious.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I will definitely give it props for that. I don't think it's anywhere near that clever in the original.
I never knew the original, or you mean the Japanese, the sub?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I honestly don't remember what the joke was back then, but it probably paled in comparison.
It's been a while. Plus, like, it's harder for me to remember what they say in the subtitle because I'm reading it versus hearing it.
Yeah, different parts of the brain.
For sure. Let's see. Any other things we should talk about?
Overall, one of the War Witch shows, I thought this was one of the more well done ones. Like like the effort. You can see the effort in the details, why how they wanted to go for historical accuracy. Like even some of the planes they used were actual World War II planes. I know at least a couple of them were based on English Mustangs. And it's really the show like sort of shines in the details that way, rather than the overall.
Yeah, I would completely agree.
Story and plot. I do as a person who appreciates attention to detail. I do like how that the show did that.
Yeah, no, I would completely agree. I think they went above and beyond in certain cases. I thought they did. Yeah, you can definitely tell they did a lot of research. And I think they what I want to say, that's not just repeating myself, but you can tell they put a lot of thought into it.
And also the fluidity of the animation was just really aesthetically pleasing to me, especially in the fight scenes. None of that felt forced or choppy. Everything played to plan, and the results were just fantastic.
Absolutely. It would be really nice if, unfortunately, Anime, or not Anime News Network, but unfortunately, my anime list has been down for several days now, which is unfortunate because it is making it pretty impossible to look up certain things. So I'm gonna really quick. Actually, no, I'm trying to look up who the animation. Okay, so the chief animation director. This. Okay, yeah. So I think there are two chief animation directors as well as art directors as well. Okay, so chief art director is there's Masayuki Sekine and Mika Nakajima. Let's see. Masayuki-san worked on episodes 3 through 12, and he also did work for shows such as
Oh, you were wondering who did the scoring for it? The person behind the music is known simply as Michiru.
Yeah, no, they're the composer. I just meant like in terms of like
Oh, you want to know who the artist who did the singing was?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Couldn't tell you.
It's fine. Okay, so Mika Nakajima did art designs for All Dead Mean on the Sky, which actually now that kind of makes sense because they have a really similar aesthetic.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of the. I noticed some comparisons in hair color shading with Izetta and Alderamin. It was a weird thing to notice, but I noticed
also, and now this makes so much more sense now. They are currently working on Kakuryu Bed and Breakfast for Spirits.
Oh, cool.
So that actually makes a lot more sense, because I kept thinking, like, why do these designs look so familiar? It's like, oh, that's why. Okay, and so the actual director is Masaya Fujimori, and they have previously worked on, I wonder if this is actually an offshoot of Production IG.
It's possible. Isn't Studio Nut an offshoot of them? Or no, wait, they're Madhouse. Never mind.
I think it's a little bit of both, but I think it's mostly Madhouse, yeah. Okay, so this guy is directed. He's directed a lot.
He did most of the storyboards for Doraemon and key animations as well.
Oh, he also did stuff for Kijibiki Unbalanced. That's awesome. Okay, so really quick, of course, because he worked on Genshiken. Okay, so Kijibiki Unbalanced, if you've seen the show Genshiken, it's like a show within a show. So the anime in Genshiken that all the characters are obsessed with is called Kijibiki Unbalanced. And so as like, I think it's like a special feature. At one point they made, I think it's only like a 2 or 3 episode OVA, but they basically made a full anime out of Kijibiki Unbalanced. So it's like what I'm hoping happens with Hoshiro Girl Drop.
Yes, I was about to say it's what we want with Hoshiro Girl Drop, but much earlier. Oh.
Okay, yeah, this
turns out he was also the director for the first Fairy Tail movie, Phoenix Priestess, and did storyboards for that as well.
Oh, nice.
And was the key animation for an episode of Infinite Stratos.
Okay, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. What else has Michiru also done, I wonder? Not much. Oh, they did the music for Kokoku, Moment by Moment, and Mitsuboshi Colors, which is a show I really like from last winter season.
Aside from Izetta and Mitsuboshi, I haven't heard of any of these.
Kokoku is Moment by Moment. It was an Amazon exclusive from last season, so I'm not surprised. I only saw like a couple episodes of it. I may or may not go back to it. It had a really it's the one where I said like it had a really awesome opening, and then because it's also it's a collaboration with Miyavi, so like of course it's awesome. But yeah, like it had a really awesome opening and ending, but I wasn't really feeling the show at first. So anyway, so enough of us blathering on because we've been here for what, like 45 minutes. So I guess for me personally, I would give it an overall recommendation of 3.5 out of 5 magic stones.
I would give it a 4 out of 5 magic stones. It was enjoyable. Yeah, sorry, my phone jack came out for a sec.
No worries.
I enjoyed it. It wasn't a perfect show, but it was still really enjoyable, really on point, and you could tell. And I liked a lot of the aesthetics they put in, and references to World War II that they had going on.
For sure. I really, and again, as I stated previously, I really liked the attention to detail. Again, I felt like the story overall was really compelling. I really like the character designs, and again, like some of the action sequences are really well done.
The action sequences are probably my favorite part.
And of course, using an anti-tank rifle as a speed bike from Star Wars. Yeah, and of course the soundtrack that I'm completely obsessed with. I would definitely recommend. I think Matt gives us a slightly higher recommendation than I do. For me personally, I think it's a stream it recommendation. Just if you're at all curious, definitely worth checking out. It's available on Crunchyroll or Funimation now. I think Matt probably has a slightly higher recommendation than I do, but I give it a light to medium recommendation, definitely. Probably higher if you're a military otaku fan at all.
I would recommend this show to anyone who likes just like stuff based on on any of the world wars, or just war or in general, or if you like retellings or alternate world shows, this is definitely for you. I never want to tell anyone to buy anything right away because everyone has different tastes, but I would definitely recommend streaming it, and if you like it, definitely buy it because it is a amazing show.
And speaking of buying it, how have you checked out, like, what are the special features on the discs like?
I'm now holding the DVD Blu-ray combo pack in my hand, and as per your previous question, it says include extras are promo videos and trailers.
Okay, so not entirely bare bones, but
not every show gets commentaries anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, I wonder if that's just like a timing thing.
I think it is, especially with broadcast dubs, since the schedule to get it out on home video isn't as hectic, but at the same time they would have to schedule the commentary while doing other broadcast dubs, which is probably where the hectic part lies.
Yeah. I know, like, hurting. It has
great art, though.
Yeah, like, I know hurting voice actors is kind of like hurting cats.
Yeah. Great art. I like the back is written like sort of like it's supposed to be a classified message, which is pretty cool.
Oh, nice. Hang on, I'm gonna actually look up Izetta Blu-ray.
Really endearing pictures, and there's also supposed to look like one of the German newspapers, I'm guessing. Or not German, Germanian. But yeah, the art is solid on it, and there's a lovely full image inside. There's a lovely full cover image on the other side of the main cover. But yeah, the slip has the black and white stuff you said you were liking about the newsreels.
Yeah,
really nice.
I'm looking at it right now. That's really, really cool. Oh, wow, that's so cool. Yeah. Man, I will say, though, as of late, and I'm not trying to make this like a criticism or like, no, or like whatever. This is mainly just an observation. Like, I'm not trying to be like whatever about it. But I have noticed that I feel like Funimation isn't putting out as many limited editions as they have in the past, and I feel like and even if they are, they're not going as far as they used to. Like, I feel like especially the ones I've seen from Sentai lately, I feel like they've been going like really all out.
Yeah, I've noticed that too, and I'm really curious as to why that might be. Obviously, I'm guessing just budgetary issues, but
yeah, and of course they went nuts with the recent Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, so it seems when they are putting out limited,
I will never be able to buy, and I'm still crying about it.
It seems with limited editions, they lately have just been going all in or not a whole lot. I'm not criticizing their current limited editions because they're
this
awesome.
Obviously, like, this is not meant to be like a criticism in any way. It's just mainly an observation. Yeah, like, I'm not trying to be like all blah or whatever.
Yeah.
Speaking of a limited edition, I wish I could look at before pre-ordering the new Princess Principal.
Oh yeah,
which
people are psyched about that.
So bad. Oh
that
man,
was a fun show.
Oh god, I'm so obsessed with it. Which actually brings me to alternate recommendations for the show we're supposed to be talking about. So
Princess Principal is not an alternate recommendation, by the way, since it has nothing to do with witches. Still a good show, though. Check it out.
And it still is kind of set during a World War-ish, kind of. So at least you have that. And it's got cute girls and, like, kind of magic. It's got, like,
gravity ball. It has a gravity ball.
It's got at least a steampunk vibe to it, which I love. But anyway, so a show that is actually about a witch. This is pretty obvious, but Maria the Virgin Witch, which is a Production IG anime from, I think, 2015. It's a really cool show. I had some reservations about it, but I kind of stuck with it, and I think about the 7th episode I was pretty much sold.
Yeah.
It's about a witch as well, obviously. However, this case, it takes place, I think, during, like, Joan of Arc or around that time.
War.
Yeah, the 100 Years War, so it's English and the French.
You loved it. I loved it, too. Just being a guy, the title made me think it would be way more sexual than it was. It's points here and there, but really nothing consistent or overall. It's a really great bit of storytelling and just a great character piece on Maria.
And also, I think it had a really interesting and compelling take on pacifism. And you know, because I think Maria being very much a pacifist and very much like passionately like anti-war. It was just she's a really compelling character. I really liked her a lot. And so segue into the next recommendation, which is a character who is not very, let's just say, you'd want to be on her good side, but you probably wouldn't want to be her friend. And that is the...
she wouldn't want you to be her friend.
Exactly.
She wouldn't want anyone to be her friend.
Exactly. Not even a cute little potato girl. That's the Saga of Tanya the Evil. It's a 2017 production by Studio Net. Which, as we discussed earlier, is probably like an offshoot of Madhouse.
I think Splinter Cell might be a little more like it because apparently it was started by a bunch of animators who were pissed off at Madhouse and thought, you know what, screw this, we're going to do our own thing. And thus Studio Nut was born.
So yeah, it's adapted from, I believe, a light novel of the same name. It's okay. So there are two ways I can explain this. My personal recommendation with this show. So basically, on the surface, it's about this devilishly cunning little girl in this like military uniform, and she kind of sort of has this army at her command. And it's kind of in this, like, weird alternate version of, like, somewhere between, like, World War I and World War II. It's kind of a mishmash of the two. And so...
The tactics are... With Tanya, Tanya's an interesting setting because the tactics are completely World War I. Trench warfare with dogfights is completely World War I, yet it's set in the late 20s, I believe,
or something like that. But again, like
27, 28, 29.
Yeah, and but then again, it's like, who really knows? Because this is supposed to be like an alternate universe, so who the hell knows?
Yeah.
But okay, so there are certain things about the show where it's like, personally, I recommend just going into the first episode completely cold. Because there is a twist in the second episode that I think is really important.
Very.
That being said,
take the first episode at face value and move on.
Yeah. The the thing is, unfortunately, though, if you do look up this episode, if you don't care about spoilers, look, like, I think the Wikipedia
spoils the hell out of it.
Yeah, like, pretty much everything just spoils the show, like, straight off the bat. So, like, if you're concerned about spoilers, if you care about any of that, just go into it cold. Like, avoid any discussions, whatever. Just go into the first episode cold, stick with it. Even if you're not sure about it, watch the second episode, because it totally changes the dynamic. Like, not completely, but it definitely changes things for sure.
When I learned the twist in the second episode, all I could think was, is Monica Rial gonna actually play this dude?
Perhaps that was even too big a clue, but we'll just leave it at that.
And we'll I have one more recommendation for you. If you like to see witches flying around and shooting things, I recommend Strike Witches and Brave Witches. Strike Witches was the first is the main series of the World Witches franchise, and it's a bunch of girls who can put on propellers and fly around and shoot these aliens called Neroi, and it's a big weapons fest with a lot of fun slice of life antics, which was an interesting balance to watch. And then there's Brave Witches, which is basically a spin-off of that same idea. Plain girls, big shoot 'em up stuff, and just fun antics in between.
And if you're looking for something a little bit more grounded, here comes a pun. I also recommend checking out Girls und Panzer, which is, if you enjoy girls in heavy machinery, that's definitely one to check out. It's basically girls with a bunch of tanks. And again, it kind of incorporates a lot of the same elements of Strike Witches and so forth, and that it's just, heavy machinery, cute girls doing cute things, antics, and it's just, and also it's got I think it's got a really great dub cast, but that's just me. And also, the film is now Girls und Panzer film is finally legally available, so that's a bonus.
I bought it. It's awesome. You should too.
All right, so I think we
covered everything.
Surprisingly enough. Be sure to tune in next week.
We actually got through this.
Be sure.
Wait, did we say this be weekly or bi-weekly?
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Something like that. Next week or the week after that, one of those two. Not sure which yet. We'll keep you in suspense.
And that may or may not be a clue for the next episode. Ha ha ha.
Okay, I have no clue how I made that a clue, but okay. Where can they find us if they want to, do the social medias with us, Stella?
Oh, yes, for sure. You can find me on Twitter at Shtera. That's SHTERRRA, 3 R's.
And you can find me on Twitter at Matthew H. Voss. So that's... Did we forget anything?
I don't think so.
Well, with that, thank you for joining us, and we hope you tune in next week.
Goodbye, folks.
Toodaloo.
And that's our show. New episodes drop every 2 weeks on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Central Time on YouTube. The show is available for download on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Podcast Addict, and Stitcher. Follow us on Twitter at Dubterfuge for more updates. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Now this is podcasting.